Powered by the Montana Television Network. This is the 5:30 News on Q2, Montana's news leader.
Good evening and thanks for joining us this Friday. I'm Jay Cohn in for Russ Riesinger.
And I'm Janelle Slade. The ban on selling flavored e-cigarettes is back on here in Montana.
This because a Montana District Court judge has yet to rule on whether to enforce or strike down the governor's emergency ban.
The Montana Department of Public Health and Human Services says it will begin to enforce emergency e-cigarette and vaping rules at 1 p.m. next Wednesday.
If you recall, back in October, Governor Steve Bullock ordered the emergency ban of all flavored e-cigarette products. That includes flavored nicotine, THC, and CBD. But Montana Vape Shops and the Montana Smoke-Free Association went to court seeking a temporary restraining order to prevent state officials from enacting the ban.
Well, that temporary restraining order expired in late October, and with no indication from the court that a ruling is imminent, state health officials say the public's health is still at risk.
All of the reasons that precipitated the emergency rules in the first place are still here. Too many young people in Montana still use and are getting addicted to e-cigarette products. And we actually had 5 additional cases of e-cigarette injury come about since the beginning of the litigation. So with those sort of public health demands, the state felt it was essential to act and protect people that are in the path of this epidemic.
Graybill also pointed out that e-vaping products have never been approved by the Food and Drug Administration, but he says that could change this coming May when several lawsuits over e-vaping will come to a head.
Now, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention says there are more than 2,400 cases of e-vaping related illnesses nationwide, at least 7 of those here in Montana.
It's been a big week for U.S. farmers and ranchers in the area of trade.
First, a deal reached between House Democrats and the White House on U.S.-Mexico-Canada trade agreement. Then yesterday, President Trump signed off on the Phase 1 trade deal with China.
The Montana Ag Network's Russell Nimitz is here to join us with more.
Well, the agreement between the world's 2 biggest economies actually averts this Sunday, December 15th, introduction of a new wave of U.S. tariffs on $160 billion worth of Chinese goods. And sources say the deal does include a promise from China to buy more U.S. agricultural products. Now, Agriculture Secretary Sonny Perdue says the announcement is another win for U.S. farmers and ranchers.
Well, I know the numbers that have been discussed really is in the $40 to $50 billion range, which when you think about the scale, that's double what's ever happened before. So that is a significant number. It'll be a real bonanza if we can trust China to do what they say they'll do. It's easy to sometimes to talk, but to implement and act is really what part of a lot of this discussion has been about.
China's appetite for beef continues to grow, and Montana ranchers like Fred Wacker from Miles City are ready to supply a steady diet of high-quality U.S. beef to meet this growing demand.
I was in New York last week. I met with a Chinese buyers from a large distributing company, and they're absolutely interested in high-quality beef for their high-quality customers.
Meanwhile, the U.S. wheat industry is also encouraged by the news of a Phase 1 trade deal and believe that China's flour millers and growing baking industry would welcome the opportunity to purchase high-quality U.S. wheat classes once again. With that, we'll go ahead and send it back to you.
All right, thanks so much, Russell.
And Russell tells us in addition to a significant increase in Chinese ag purchases, officials also say this Phase 1 pact will include commitments from China to do more to stop intellectual property theft. That's something the Trump administration has been pushing for.
Well, Montana's only U.S. House Representative, Republican Greg Gianforte, says he'll be voting no on articles to impeach President Trump when they come to the House floor next week. Gianforte told us today the impeachment inquiry has been a sham since day one. When asked whether he thought President Trump abused his power in dealing with Ukraine or obstructed the congressional inquiry, Gianforte said only that he sees no basis for impeachment. Now, MTN News also reached out to the 8 candidates running to succeed Gianforte in 2020. 3 of the 5 Republicans who replied said they would vote no, and 2 of the 3 Democrats said they would vote yes. Now, Democrat Kathleen Williams would not say how she would vote on the articles.
The Billings Police Department has a new canine handler, and he and his partner have wasted little time in learning how to take a bite out of crime. For the last 2 weeks, Officer Nathan Contreras and Tabasco have been tackling different scenarios like searching vehicles, homes, and various room situations that a canine officer team might encounter. Contreras has been a police officer for nearly 8 years, the past 4 of those here in Billings. He believes there is a need for more canine handlers and hopes that his new job in Billings gives him the opportunity to become more involved in cracking down on local drug crimes.
If we didn't have canines, we'd be missing a lot. There's so many times we run into cars where we have, odors of drugs inside, or we might see something that might lead us to believe that there's something inside. And by having those canines and being able to take them and run them on the vehicles and get that alert to help us get inside those cars, it really helps us out to be able to get more drugs off the street.
And the one thing that Contreras says he did not expect about his new position so far is just how physically demanding it is.
Well, former students at a building last known as St. Francis Upper School will get one more chance to enjoy some memories before it's remodeled.
And by making a donation to Mayfair, the Billings Catholic School's largest fundraiser, they can also take home some memorabilia. Now, the new building owners didn't want to take everything to the dump, so any item not permanently attached is available. Most of the 4,800 students in the Catholic school system here in Billings attended classes at what started as the Kate Fratt Memorial Parochial School.
We just want them to come and see it and remember. I've had people from the East Coast, from the West Coast, they've been emailing and saying, I wish I were there. Oh, the memories in that building, and there's a ton of them. 100 years is a long time for a building to be in operation. This one had many, many students come through here. So it's a good time to come and say goodbye.
Now, the Fratt Building open house is tomorrow, Saturday, from 9 to noon at 205 North 32nd Street.
Well, if you were watching yesterday, we shared video of Santa visiting children in the pediatric unit up at Billings Clinic.
And today he continued right into the hospital's neonatal intensive care unit.
And down a little bit more. Good. All right.
For many parents of babies in the NICU, going out for Santa pictures is not in the card, so Santa brought the pictures to them. Now, each parent received a print of a professionally shot Santa photo.
All the babies were also decked out in donated holiday outfits today and gifted their own handmade Christmas blankets.
No one ever picks their baby's first Christmas to be in the NICU, and so to have the little things like Santa actually come in, and some of these babies won't get to be held by Santa, but they'll still have their Santa picture, and they can reflect on that every year. It's a keepsake for the rest of their lives. It helps fill some sort of normalcy in a plan that they would have never picked or traveled down.
And be sure to watch the Q2 10 o'clock news for a look inside how the NICU works to make the holiday special for all of its families.
And we've heard that the babies at St. Vincent Healthcare can also look forward to a visit from Santa next week, but don't tell anybody.
Don't tell anybody yet. And there's more news from across our state tonight. Heroes can come in all different sizes. We'll meet this 8-year-old lifesaver whose 911 call saved his mom. Join me for that story and more on tonight's MTN Statewide News at 9 on the CW.
But first, on tonight's 5:30 news, there's a lot of game before the game.
Tonight, we'll head to Bozeman to meet a family with decades of experience under its belt.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to Friday the 13th in Las Vegas. What could possibly go wrong? Coming up in sports, I'll tell you why I'm down here, and we'll hear from Miles City Cowboy Haven Medjid. The NFR rookie is 2 rounds away from winning his first world championship.
And coming up in weather, what's the deal with all the fog? Well, we'll tell you why it formed and how long it's going to stick around coming up in a few more minutes.
You're watching MTN News with Janelle Slade and Russ Riesinger. Storm Tracker weather with Bob McGuire. And sports with Scott Green. This is the 5:30 news on Q2, Montana's news leader.